Our guest today is filmmaker Todd Hickey. His credits include, as a cinematographer, After Sex, Sunny Boy, and Freestyle, The Art of the Rhyme.
He made his directorial debut with this past year's wrestling gem, Takedowns and Falls, which we screened this past October at our Film Courage Interactive.
Awesome.
We had a great crowd there.
Sure did.
I'm at the event, and Karen, I know you loved all the people sort of pouring in, with the Q&A questions.
Yeah, and little kids, and I just remember there was this 8-year-old boy in the audience, and he was just so excited, and he was asking questions. So it was a fun night.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great time.
And the man here today impressed us with his ability to go out and find his audience and then get them to the theater.
Please welcome to the Film Courage studio, Mr. Todd Hickey. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
How's it going?
Oh, it's great. Great having you here today.
Yeah,
Thanks
we're having a good time.
Yeah,
we're having a good time here, Todd. It's been nice chatting with you outside the studio here, and I'll get you in here. And we've been excited to do this for a while.
We sure have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys do a lot of great stuff for filmmakers like us. Thank you.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you. So let's find out about your background. Now, we understand that you wrestled a bit in high school.
I did. I wasn't a very good wrestler, but I actually wrestled for Coach Swigert, who is one of the main characters in the film, and it's part of the genesis of the film. Kirk Ledger and I, my producing partner in it, both went to high school together. We went to film school together. We always wanted to fill a gap that we saw in documentary films, that there really wasn't a film like this. Too many films that just covered sort of a season of high school wrestling and your average wrestling team.
Well, I think in another interview, you said, and this is your quote, that you were an underachiever, and then you got to college and you kind of regretted missing out on your wrestling days and couldn't go back, so this fueled you.
It did. Mm-hmm. It did, absolutely. I think that a lot of us growing up are afraid to try, and it's easier to fail and think that, oh, well, I didn't really try that hard, so you move on. And that's something that drives me as a filmmaker, to really put everything into it, and like Coach Swigert always says, no excuses.
So you said you went to film school. Was that your first experience with filmmaking, or were you making short films as a kid?
No, film school was my first experience. I took pictures, had some photography classes, really enjoyed photography, but at some point just decided that I wanted to try to make films, and went to Temple University.
Oh,
do you know where that came from, Todd? Where did this urge to go to film school?
Just as an audience member, I think. Part of it was Do the Right Thing, seeing Do the Right Thing in the theater, and it just affected me. I want to tell stories. I want to tell a personal story, and that we all have stories to tell, and how do we do it? How do we get that message out there?
But you weren't one of those 10-year-old kids with a camcorder in his hand going out filming the block, anything like that?
No, I wasn't at all. I was out getting in trouble, probably.
And once you get to Temple University, you're in the film school program there. What kept you persisting at filmmaking? Did you literally catch sort of the bite?
I did. I was interested in writing too, and I think just storytelling. I found my niche in cinematography. I shot my own projects, and everybody else in film school wanted me to shoot theirs. So then it was sort of just the path of least resistance. It's like, well, you're close to the director, you're part of the storytelling, you're really involved in the process, and I just wanted to master as many departments as I could. And that was an easy way for me to be on a lot of sets with an important role.
Yeah, I love hearing this stuff. This is Film Courage on LATalkRadio.com. We're in studio with filmmaker Todd Hickey. Something I want to touch on something here, because in doing research, saw that you came up with the story for a new Nicholas Cage Guy Pearce film. You're given story credit on this. What was the evolution of development there? Is it a story that you pitched to the studios?
No, my friend Robert Tannen, who wrote the screenplay, it's like a coffee shop buddy of mine. We commiserate over our Hollywood life and the struggles within. And one day we're just trading stories, and I told him about this idea I had, and then he asked me if he could write it into a screenplay, which he did, and then through his manager and agent, they sold the script.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
So I didn't really have much to do with the process after the idea.
After the idea. Wow. But how does that feel for you, seeing this idea that you had is going on to become a pretty big film here?
It's cool, of course, but it's taken so long. We sold it 3 years ago, and it's done. It's been done for a while. I'm not sure when it's coming out. Hopefully late this fall or something. But I had heard it was going to come out in the spring, and then it didn't. So, until it's actually in theaters, it doesn't feel totally real.
Okay, we're going to talk about Takedowns and Falls here. Before we do, Todd, I want to actually turn to Karen first.
Oh boy!
And I want to ask you, Karen, are you a wrestling fan?
Well, you know me, David. I'm not a sports fan. I didn't grow up a dad or brothers, but I love this film. It's more than a wrestling movie, though. There's a real heart and soul to it, and you become interested in each subject, for lack of a better word, in finding out about their life and their struggles. So, no, I'm not a sports fan, but I do love this film.
You see? Yeah, no, see, I knew it because she kind of knew where I was going before I went all the way there. In terms of you don't have to be a wrestling fan to really love this film. Not to say that it's not for wrestling fans, but there's something here.
There's something more here.
There's this coming of age story that's really wonderful to watch on screen, and also I'd argue. I really think this is as much Coach Schweigert's story as anything, as much as any, because you kind of said he's one of the main characters here, but I really argue it's really his story at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
It is. I think he really drives the film because he drives all the other characters. He's sort of what motivates the team, both as many coaches do and with his illness and in the way that he approaches life, having cancer in the film. And I think the kids learn a lot from that and absolutely grow up right in front of the cameras. We were really fortunate. Someone told us once that we caught lightning in a bottle.
Wow.
And I think that's an accurate phrase.
And I think also behind the scenes, just your relationship, that you and Keith were former, wrestlers under, Keith was a former wrestler. Kirk was a former wrestler for Coach Schweigert. You can kind of see that relationship happening behind the scenes as well.
One thing I really took away, and I don't want to give away too much about the film, but with the coach, his attitude really was like, don't feel sorry for yourself. Like, I remember one scene, he's like, if someone else is better than you and it's because you're out of shape, well, that's on you. And he really kind of instilled that in a tough love kind of way. It's just like, feeling sorry for yourself is not okay.
Right. It's no way to go about life.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And these wrestling, as we all know, until recently with like UFC, there's no like dangling carrot of professional leagues, and that's part of like why we're so interested in telling wrestlers stories, because it is what it is, and and it's life. It just is what it is, and there's never this like, oh, this extra thing to drive me in wrestling. It's when it's over, and if you don't do what you set out to do, then it's quickly too late,
Sure.
and a lot of us learn that too late. We're through something in life. We're like, I didn't do what I should have done. I didn't put into it what I could have at the time. I had excuses, and that's what he drives through these kids.
Before we get into the specifics, give us an overview of how many years did you have to put into Takedowns and Falls?
We started putting it together the summer of 2006. March of 2006, Walter Peppelman, the other sort of main character of the film, had been a state runner-up as a sophomore. And Coach Schweigert, as you learn in the film, was a state runner-up at Central Dolphin, where he coaches now. And so Kirk and I were like, maybe this is the time. That's a great place to start. Like, the best kid on the team and the coach, they're both state runner-ups. The school had never won a state title. That region had never won a team state title. We're like, maybe this is the place to start. So that's where we started with this like Rocky II sort of thing. And then we shot the 2006-2007 season.
Seems like everything was lining up for you, but can you tell us all the work that you had put in, did it almost not happen with the film?
Well, I mean, we certainly, like other films, ran into a lot of stumbling blocks. We went out there and we shot a trailer and sort of put that together, and then came back and raised money, and then had to raise money completely throughout the process as we were going. We were always chipping away at, like, oh, we need this, and then just spending it, because money goes out easier than it comes in, that's for sure.
Oh, sure. So what would you do in those times when kind of the floor fell out from underneath you? How did you keep motivating yourself?
Just the team around us,
Really?
We all just kept knowing that, like, once we had got this film in the can, we knew we had to tell this story. Like, we were so lucky. We went into it, like, looking at it more like something like Spellbound, a mosaic of Pennsylvania wrestling. And then we got to CD and started to meet the kids, or the other kids on the team, like Tony DeLago, Simon Rice, Kenny Stank, who has diabetes, another great character that's motivating himself. And we're like, we just have to stay here. And Coach gave us so much access, that it was just like, let's just stay here. We need like 4 or 5 camera crews around the state to do sort of what we showed up here thinking we would do. And then that decision paid off for us immensely. Just by spending so much time with that one team, we were really fortunate to capture the story that we did.
Could we just dive a little bit deeper, into the development of this? Because you had the idea, you saw, like, it's right there in front of you. What was the prep work? Because you have to go there, you're going to talk to the coaches. Do you start talking to the student athletes, their families? How much before you could actually roll cameras on this story? And did it almost fall through? Even though the window was open?
No, I don't think it almost fell through more than any other documentary like this. We knew that we wanted to do it, and we were going to keep trying. Kirk and I are both from Harrisburg, so we both stayed at our parents' houses. I destroyed my dad's truck using it throughout the production, and it was family and friends that kept us going, and when it felt like the bottom might drop out. But as far as prep work, we basically wrote a treatment. Then we reached out to Coach Swigert. He reached out to the school for us and sort of gave us the thumbs up. And then we went out there and met with the Peppelmans. And that was the first family that we met with Walter's parents and Marshall's parents. And then we went to a coach parent night for the team and talked to all the parents that showed up about what we wanted to do. And they all were okay with it. The school was okay with it. And then we started shooting.
And what was their reaction? Was this something they were resistant to, and warmed up to, or did you have their full enthusiasm right away?
I think it was there. I don't think there was resistance, but people were concerned. In the world of reality television, and everybody wants to tell bad stories.
Sure.
Bad news, and this is what these kids are doing wrong. There was concern of what do they want to tell? What story do they want to tell? These kids partying? Reality has a lot of different versions. So I think that they were concerned more than anything. But we just stayed on course and didn't do that. And I think eventually they figured out who Kirk and I were, and that we had good intentions.
And how about the kids? How did they react? Were some of them, oh yeah, I want to be a star type of a thing, and others were more shy?
Well, I think you see in the film, some of them are hams. Some kids are hams,
Absolutely.
And some were resistant to the cameras, absolutely. Not resistant, but some kids don't like being on camera. And the movie starts with Walt saying that he doesn't like to be the center of attention, but he's the star of the team. He was one of the best kids in the state, and there's that conflict,
sure,
throughout the film. And we're making a film on a kid that says, and it does not want to be the center of attention in a sport where you're absolutely the center of attention, one at a time. Mm-hmm. So, it was tricky. It was tricky at times.
Mm-hmm.
Walt's a great kid, and he was great to us, but we wanted him to be himself. And, part of him being himself was to not engage with the camera absolutely at any time.
Well, how did you get him to trust you then, and how did you get him to kind of let down his guard a little bit? Because he did great. You're so drawn in by his story, but in knowing that,
just by being there. The time we were there every day, we talked to him, all the kids every day, share stories, just by being around and showing them that we were dedicated. Whatever practice they had, we were going to be at. We traveled. And we shared our experiences of being kids,
Right.
You know, and what was it like each day? I mean, you know, so you're there for every practice, for every match. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when they arrive after school for practice, are you there with your cameras like set up and rolling?
Pretty much. Yeah. We mic rolling coach. We plant mics in the mats and, you know, stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, we say, how's your day? You know, we like those guys. We became friends you know.
So they knew, like, not only were they going to wrestling practice, but they were being documented as well.
Yeah.
Like, that was part of the process.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, when you're watching these stories unfold on the screen, you find yourself becoming the viewer more and more personally invested. And I'm sure this was just a fraction of your experience, what we see. When you finish the filming, how hard was it for you to leave this team? I mean, you must have felt this huge emptiness.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think one of my biggest lessons making this film was how hard it was to, like, edit the film knowing that the people in it were going to see it, you know, and because, like, no one asked to be in this film, no, you know, and we portray people honestly, but sometimes honesty hurts, you know, like Doug's character, for example. I mean, you know, I was scared to be completely honest, you know, because I don't want to hurt anybody's life, you know, or feelings, you know. So that was quite difficult.
It's hard, you know, to ask some of the questions because for those that haven't seen the film, we don't want to necessarily go all the way there.
Right.
But let's come back. Here it is. You're going to go ahead and make this film. Where does the initial money come from? Because I don't know the time frame. Like, you met with them in the summertime, and then you're filming in the fall.
Yeah, it's a fall, winter, spring sport basically.
Yes.
So the initial money came from my friend Yuri Henley, and part of Yuri is the genesis of this film too. He grew up here in Los Angeles, knows nothing about wrestling. We were sitting down one day talking about, you know, what I'm going to do next, you know, just as a friend to friend. He produces a lot of commercials and movies and stuff. And I was like, well, you know, that wrestling thing I've always been talking about, maybe we could do something on that. Walter just was a runner-up. He's like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's write it up. So Yuri paid for us to go out there and make the trailer, and he made the initial investment and pretty much was always gap financing the film. Like, whenever we couldn't find someone else, he, you know, came up with money somehow, some way for the film. It would have never gotten made without him or my ex-girlfriend, who also did a lot of gap financing for the film.
One thing, too, I found interesting was that a lot of these boys in the film, they were from these upper middle class homes, and some of them had their own wrestling studio in the family's house. How do you think that this set of boys or this set of wrestlers differed from an inner city group or more of a poor rural group? Do you think that this they had less motivation or maybe more so to live up to family expectations?
I think it's different. You know, some of the kids on the team don't have the pressure of they need a college scholarship, you know, and like that doesn't play into it, you know, but there is a lot of like personal motivation, you know, and there's a lot of family pressure that goes on a lot, you know. I mean, all parents want their kids to succeed, you know, but
especially in the upper middle class, and
for sure,
beyond, there's a lot of pressure.
So I mean, there's a tremendous amount of pressure, and the kids at some point started putting that pressure on themselves, you know, and coping with pressure, I think, is a great lesson for kids to be learning, you know. But I think kids in the inner city have a different sort of pressure, and I think that's why wrestling isn't huge in the inner city, and it's not even huge in the suburbs. It's you know, it really comes from like coal mining communities and farm communities in Pennsylvania, where those kids needed to get to college. You know, that's why traditionally they say Pennsylvania's so good in wrestling. Its genesis is from those communities. Now somehow its popularity has taken off in more suburban areas.
You know, you ended up with over 500 hours of footage. You know, believe that you spent more than 2 years editing the film. For anyone making a documentary or even a narrative that has more than 100 hours of footage, should you expect that you're going to keep the same editor from start to finish?
No, absolutely not. Unfortunately.
Can you comment a little bit about your experience here?
Shooting the film was much easier than editing it, for sure. I mean, it was a much more pleasant experience, you know. But it gets difficult, you know, like that much time on a film, and that obviously it doesn't pay a lot of money, but takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of energy, and it, you know, takes your heart, and people get burnt out and sick of each other, you know, and move on, you know, and it's fine. I think it's part of the process, you know. You experience things like that, try to learn from it, and do better the next time around. That was the whole idea with this film in the beginning. It's not the last film I'm ever going to make, I hope. You know?
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure if we see enough of that. I'm not sure if we see enough filmmakers saying, like, having the game plan from the very beginning to say, you know what, this is going to be a monster project, and I just know going in, I'm not just going to rely on one editor to think that, you know, although that's important, but I know, like, with Tree of Life, I mean, Terrence Malick, I believe he has 4 or 5 editors on that project that he knew going in, we're going to go from one editor to the next, and then we're going to take that, the main editor is going to kind of come back on the end, and we're going to do that final polish together.
Right. I don't know if I had the foresight of that it was going to go down like this.
That's why I'm just throwing it out there for everyone listening.
You know, but it certainly happened that way.
Yeah.
And I think just the way we sort of set up that some of the people that had come on as assistant editors did so much work and had so much influence on the film, and actually were editors, that they deserved credit too, you know, and that's part of it too. It's like, well, you participated so much, your mark is on this film, you deserve a credit too, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean, that's part of the list of editors also, you know, like some left, some ran, some stayed.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. It's tricky. You know, we've gone through that with Night Before the Wedding. We had to get a couple different editors involved. You know, we're very, very fortunate on our film Goodbye Promise that we've had an editor from start to finish that kind of took it from my hands and stayed on it. You know, our guy Arik Lewis. Thank goodness.
Are you focused on building these relationships with community leaders? Is that sort of where you put your effort into marketing? Yeah,
I mean, I think we find a lot of value in like co-oping audiences, you know, and sharing audiences, and we have a common cause, like us and Scott, that coach, and us, and you know, we co-op ads with like wrestling websites and stuff like that. We go and shoot little things for the websites, and then they give us ad space, you know, and that's been really helpful. When you don't have like a ton of cash, you just have to find ways to get the word out, you know, and we've been pretty successful in doing that. You know, the wrestling community has embraced the film, which, you know, is great for us. So, you know, word spreads. It's really just about our reach. We see it all the time. Every time we get like you guys pushing this interview, our DVD sales go up. You know, it's really easy to see. So it's just about our reach, and the more we reach and the more we continue to push, then the better the film keeps going. You know, it's taking on a life of its own.
Well, you have us intrigued. Have you seen a little increase in DVD sales with just with the coming on this show already?
Oh yeah. I mean,
I'd like to hear that.
We're always looking for, you know, I mean, if you see our fan page, like, it's primarily become like wrestling news. We just recycle wrestling news. It's like, because that's what the fans will keep coming to the page for, and you know, people are like just learning about the film still, even within that community, because we don't have a huge P&A budget. And you know, the tour that we did of the Northeast last year, 2010, you know, reached a certain community. But the one good thing about like sports films is every year there's new audience members, because every year there's new wrestlers. You know, every year there's a new family that has a kid that wants to wrestle or play football or play basketball. You know, that, and we're counting on that the film will have legs. You know, because it is kind of timeless. You know, we actually went through and took some of the year dates out of the text just to like take away that like time stamping it so much.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I really like you throwing out the term co-oping the audience. I really like that. And I guess that's part of your background. Can you talk about the tour, you know, that you had previous to Takedowns and Falls?
Yeah, I used to run with Kevin Fitzgerald, who directed Freestyle: The Art of Rhyme, and Kevin Epps, who made a film called Straight Outta Hunters Point about the San Francisco community. The three of us together put on a tour with other filmmakers. We did like 30 or 40 cities over a couple of years in the early 2000s, called the Hip Hop Film Festival, and traveled with that, Scratch, Dark Days, like showed Al Fox. We would rent films that we thought were important to the hip-hop community too, and sort of all the idea was everyone promote their own film and each other's, you know. And it went pretty well, but then our lives sort of became being a film festival, and where everyone wanted to be filmmakers, you know. And that's a conflict in self-distribution or hybrid distribution, and happened to me again last year. As Kirk and I weren't making films, we were putting out a film, you know. And that's what a lot of filmmakers want, is just to give their film to someone else to put out. And the risk you run is no one seeing it.
And you sort of you've taken that idea, and you have, though. You mentioned you've gone across the country with Takedowns and Falls. You know, how many screenings have you had? I know you haven't done as much screenings recently, but altogether, can you just give an estimate of how many screenings you've had?
Well, we did 30 cities. And
30 cities.
Some of the cities we did a lot of screenings, you know, like 3 or 4 a day. We were renting theaters in megaplexes. We were, you know, screening right beside Avatar, you know, because we want people to take us seriously. And audience members don't know who booked the theater. They have no idea, nor do they care how that film got in that theater. It's there. It becomes more real to them.
And who was booking the movie in the theater?
Me and Kurt.
Just the two of you?
Yeah. We just called theaters and, like, you know, said, do you know wrestling's really popular in the neighborhood that your theater is in? And they're like, sure. And then let us do it, you know.
And of those screenings, how many of them were money losers and how many of them were profitable?
Probably 50-50.
Okay, wow, that's great.
I mean, we did a lot of four-wall. I mean, we tried to stay away from four-walling. The four-walling is the most dangerous, right? And we got blizzard in Ohio, and that was a tough one. So a couple of cities that we had four-walled, you know, which means that we paid for it straight up, but we got all the money back, versus like doing a split with the theater, which is a much safer gamble if you don't have big audiences, you know. So one bad screening in a four-wall can set you back.
So you were able to arrange with the megaplexes split deals with larger theater chains.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many like little theater chains, you know, that like have like 5 or 6 theaters in like, you know, 4 or 5 cities that are far enough apart that it's different cities, you know, that will work with you. They'll work with you, you know. It's a lot of work, and a lot of people don't want to do that work.
Now, would you show up with some of the screenings? Would you do Q&As afterwards?
Oh yeah, we traveled with them. Kirk and I drove around, and we went to. There were some that we were doing at the same time. We were in 2 different cities, which really is valuable. I mean, if you can get in a couple of markets at the same time, it really helps, you know, because the buzz just spins off itself. But yeah, we went to every screening. Some of the cities we would leave, you know, we would go for the first day and then leave, go to another city, something like that.
Were you able to get the theaters on Fridays and Saturday nights, or were these more like weekday?
Some of them. It depends. Like in the Harrisburg area, we were, you know, like in the film's home, in places that felt like they were real wrestling hotbeds, that knew right away, like, yeah, we have a wrestling community here. We have, you know, people will get behind this.
What did your pitch consist of? I mean, you know, is it just an email? Is it letting them know, like, hey, we're going to be there? What sort of what goes into the pitch?
It was all of that. We would email them, then call. I mean, it at times took like good cop, bad cop, you know, like both of us calling and trying to convince them, and just like, but we've done this before, like, I promise, you know, look at this and look at this and look what we did here, and
acquiring the press clippings and sending the press clippings and I mean, did you have like any pictures of like sold out audiences and saying like, here's what we can do for you guys?
A little bit. Well, we did a few like sneak preview screenings in Pennsylvania, like in Harrisburg, that went really well, that we were able to sort of spin off that success to the theaters, you know. But
you know, as part of the theatrical run, I mean, how much importance or how much of a role did you place on film festivals? Was that part of what you were doing here at all?
Well, not really. We had a timeline we wanted to stick to, and then which was to get the DVD out by March of the year we were putting it out, March last year, because that's like the end of the wrestling season, and we knew that, you know, if we didn't have it out by then, it would be till the next wrestling season that everyone's going to the web forums and on those Facebook pages, on those Facebook groups, and you know what I mean, that like the awareness drops off. out off season. So it was important for us to do these screenings leading up to the end of March that year.
That's interesting. So when did the tour begin?
We did it basically November 2009 through March of April of 2010.
Okay.
And then did spot screenings last summer, and then then we did some West Coast screenings last fall with you guys, and then up north.
Okay, so you literally wanted to tie in the wrestling season to the theatrical run, and then while the buzz was still there, while the interest was still there, you wanted to release the DVD right at the tail end of that.
Yep.
So you could still be a part of that audience.
Yeah. So we could go to state championships and sell DVDs.
Wow.
Which we were only be able to go to a few of, but it really helps. That's our core audience right there. To go to them. We took our DVDs right to them.
How many hours are you putting in behind the scenes before each of these screenings?
Oh man,
there's a lot of work.
Oh yeah, it's a ton of work because we do all the marketing ourselves. I mean, we, all the online whatever. It's emailing a ton of writers. I mean, I think that if you don't have P&A money, and this is what we learned on the Hip Hop Film Festival, is like those sort of pick of the weeks, that sort of things in newspapers and articles in newspapers really still drive audiences to you. Like, I know that a lot of people say that sort of thing is dead, but I've seen it in our films, our experiences, that like you get real value out of being in a newspaper. Like, even just like on our website, we photocopy the newspaper articles to prove that it was in a newspaper, like someone cared enough to put this in print. Sort of, you know what I mean? It's not just online, So but there is value in that that pick of the week in a weekly paper, like the city paper in Philadelphia. That stuff really, really helps, more so than ads, I think. So we spend a lot of time reaching out to writers, sports writers, film writers, and but you risk getting bad reviews, like everybody else, but that's why we're in this.
Sure. Would you say that that's the first thing then you would do if you knew you were going to be in a certain city? Is that the first plan of action, is to then go to that paper? Yeah,
to reach out to writers and the wrestling community, film coaches, like the wrestling organizations in that area, and start from there and sort of build off of that.
Sure.
And then we go there and hand out flyers and put up posters, and like we were talking about earlier, it's really from like underground hip hop kind of that like we just took it on the road and promoting our CD, but it's our movie, and we see the screenings as concerts. And the paradigm is simple to apply to film, but you just have to see your whole experience of being a filmmaker in that way. If you don't want to do it, then we all know filmmakers with films on the shelf. Like I didn't want to be one of those.
Right. So instead of the rapper with the SUV, you're driving around telling people about it. What do you have planned as far as screenings coming up? Do you have anything in the near future?
Well, we have, it'll be out on iTunes and Netflix like sometime late this summer.
Okay.
That we're hoping to get a release date pretty soon, and we'll start to push really hard. And then, maybe do some more high school and college screenings this fall leading up to wrestling season again.
Since you brought up the iTunes and Netflix, how are you going about getting it on those platforms? Do you have a distributor involved?
We have a digital aggregate, The Orchard, that Danny Costa at the Large Films hooked us up with, and that's who's getting us on iTunes and Netflix, all the digital platforms.
Now you've sold 3,000 plus DVDs, is that
somewhere
right?
around there? Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And how many of these are online versus in person?
Maybe 50-50, somewhere around there. Probably a little bit more online.
Oh, interesting.
Just through our website.
And it's all been through your website.
Yeah. There's a few like wrestling apparel websites that carry it, but not too many. There's a bunch, but we don't sell a ton through those.
And how did you end up getting sort of syndication with those? Like, did you just send a blind query to these wrestling?
Yeah, we have like a little one sheet or whatever that we send out.
But in terms of the theatrical run, it's a lot of work, and we're talking about the amount of work that it takes. Why not get a distributor involved to do all that work for you?
Because most distributors won't do that for a film like this. I mean, they're not going to do a theatrical release. They don't see the value in it because their overhead's so high. 2 guys that can roll around in hotel rooms is much cheaper than the whole, office in Hollywood and staff, and you know what I mean? So they just won't do it, and then for the DVD, the offers we were getting just weren't worth it to us. It's like, why, I mean, I've shot a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of filmmakers never see a dime from their films, and going to big distributors and small distributors, and we're talking about small films going to big distributors or small distributors, and we're a small film, and and we found a paradigm that we could have the film drive itself. We put it on tour, then we use that money to manufacture DVDs. We sell DVDs. We use that money to promote the film, and then sell some more, and we just converted it to HD. So now we have the digital release is going to be in high definition as opposed to the standard definition of the DVD. So it just started to pay for itself on some level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's really something
awesome.
that you've been able. The thing is, it's taken so much hard work and so much energy, but you've actually created this thing where through that hard work, you've got the people to come out to the screenings where enough money's come in to actually grow and to build it, where you've been able to reinvest it the way you're saying there. Not a lot of people are able to make that happen.
No, they're not.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, Kirk has put in a lot of work too, and we realized this is the route we're going to go. Then we were off and running, and it makes it easy. The subject matter of the film and how determined these people are, and makes it a little bit easier. It's like, how can I give up? Look at the people on screen. Look what they did for us.
That's true.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what you said earlier, is you gave up being filmmakers in a sense to become distributors or building your own platform. And I think that's a real key. A lot of people don't realize. I hear so many people say, oh, I just want to make art. I don't want to have to be involved in getting it out there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really crucial.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's nothing like sharing your work. I don't want to make films and sit at home by myself with them. It's really fun. Screenings are really fun. Yeah. It's really fun. It's nerve-wracking. It's tense, and it's incredible, So sharing it is what it's about to me, and especially with an audience, 10 people, a couple people with a DVD is nothing like 500 people in an audience or 50 people in an audience. It's a much different experience. And as an audience member, I like theaters better. So I'm not going to default to DVDs as a filmmaker to share my film if I can help it.
I have to comment here, I do, because it's funny that because I guess you got all sort of the scary feelings and the nervous feelings out way before you screened with us. Because I got to say, when we screened at the Downtown Independent, you were as poised and as calm as any filmmaker I've ever seen before the film.
Not on the inside.
Really? It didn't show.
All that I saw was just like, man, this guy is really confident in his film. He knows it's a great film, and he's like, all right, let's go do it. And it was really great to see that. Right.
I'm not sure I know it's a great film, but I know it is what it is, and I have no excuses, and so that's what we show. It's the film that we worked really hard on, and it's not the best film that ever was, but we're proud of it, and so then it's kind of easy to share,
Well, I think it's an amazing film, but I like what you said about the no excuses, because it showed. I mean, you came in, you were humble, you hustled, you went to gyms, you followed up with wrestling coaches, and you got this great audience there, and they were excited, and it's not an easy thing to do, so our hats off to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I want to come back to the DVDs. Do you think you would have been better off if you could have had a point where you had the DVDs from day one of the theatrical release, rather than at the tail end of it when you had no more screenings? Would you have been better off if you had the DVDs at the very beginning and were selling DVDs at all those screenings for the wrestling season?
For sure. We would have been, and we would have liked to have been, but we just financially, we were just, and kind of time-wise, we just weren't able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but that would be one thing, if you can go back, you would have the DVDs right away.
Yeah. we could have probably sold a lot more if we were selling them at screenings. Absolutely.
When you look up Takedowns and Falls, the film has a good amount of exposure, and you have a good Facebook fan, like 3,500 or so.
Yeah,
fans?
we have another page that. The one thing with Facebook, I hope I'm not going to get us in trouble, right? But like, you can't outreach with a fan page, right? So we created that Takedowns person too.
Okay.
So between the two, we have almost 6,000. Because that we use Takedowns, that fake person that we created, to outreach to people, and then we're like, hey, be fans of our page too. Some people do, some people don't. But we basically use both those pages, the fan page and the Takedowns person, to reach out to people, because Facebook's always suggesting people to you, but then if you ask too many, they get mad at you.
Well, so you have that, but then when we examine it closely, we don't see a lot of press on Todd Hickey, and so it is hard to find interviews with you as a director of the film. So the film is really in the spotlight, whereas you remain more in the background. Is this by design? Because I think a lot of people would probably like to be in that position in some sense, where the work just speaks for itself.
I don't like being in front of the camera. That's why I work behind the camera.
Okay.
And I want films to speak for themselves. I don't get a ton of joy out of being front and center. I think that's how I relate to Walt in a lot of ways. Is that it's not important for me to be famous. I like making films. I like the experience, and that's why I do it.
And I guess the one exception is being here on Film Courage. So I gotta get a little laugh out of him.
Yeah, but that's interesting. I know. Was it John Paul Rice that came up with the term the red carpet producer? The ones that love to walk the red carpet, but don't necessarily like to do the work. And it sounds like you're just the opposite. That you like to put in the work, and that the creation of it is what gets you, and sort of not that spotlight. Too, with the Facebook, how do you engage the audience? You say that you put wrestling news and things on there. What do you find gets the most response from the core group of followers?
That's a good question. Updates, I guess. Current news, like what's current, what's the most current sort of like wrestling tournament, or sort of like what's happening to the community in general, rules changes. It really all depends. There's so many people on Facebook. Somebody's responding to everything, kind of, so...
But I like, too, that you're saying that you engage them with news, and it's not just a one-way feed that's all about the film.
Right. Well, it's also just about, add as a friend, add as a friend, add as a friend, add as a friend. You've added too many friends. You're suspended for 3 days, And on the fan page, you can't do that. On this fake person, we can, It's just like suggesting, every day it's 10, or every minute, whatever, there's 10 people in wrestling uniforms on the side. You may know this person. You may know this person. Maybe we do.
Very nice.
I think people are going to enjoy that little tidbit there. And what are your overall thoughts on social media? I mean, do you spend a lot of time there?
Kirk does most of the work on the Twitter and Facebook. I don't spend a lot of time on there. I just started to recently. I mean, I just recently got my own Facebook page because people were sort of leading personal messages in Takedowns and Falls, and I don't want to clutter the two,
Sure.
So, I mean, I spend more time on it now, just posting stupid pictures, mostly.
Very cool. We hope to hear more about Todd Hickey.
Thank you.
From this. And we've been speaking with cinematographer, writer, director, producer Todd Hickey. For more on Todd, please visit takedownsandfalls.com, and also on Facebook at the Takedowns and Falls page. You can also connect with Todd on Twitter at ResilientPics, and that's PICS. And thank you again, Todd.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate your support.
Appreciate you.
We knew this one was going to be great coming in, and it lived up to those expectations. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another Sunday edition of Film Courage. We look forward to being here with you next Sunday at noon on LATalkRadio.com. We're going to be joined by filmmaker Alex Ferrari, someone who we met in person for the first time at the Holly Shorts Film Festival several years ago. You may know his work, Broken, Sin, and Red Princess Blues. For more on Alex, please visit alexferrari.com. And
a shout out to our wonderful guy, Ronan Rosner. As always, he does so much for us. He's our radio angel, as well as the architect behind filmcourage.com. And until next Sunday, have a great week.